Welcome back. Outside Minds podcast. Because you've already seen too much, bro.
They only added it so it could be like a ritual.
They're saying there's these, the end of times, right? There's all these signs.
Do you think we would know? Like, do you think the general public would know this game?
Take a picture for $5. You have a purpose in life, and if you don't fulfill it, you will come back until you fulfill it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Minds podcast. I'm your host and creator, Stilo Free. This is the other host and creator,
Dot 420.
and we are doing with a Swapcast with the 6GAgenda podcast. I hope I got that right. I'm gonna swing it on over to those guys so they can tell you what's going on.
What's up? Yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm for 6GAgenda, and we talk about what they won't. I'm here solo. My boy Justin ain't with me, but Justin Ward on the chords. He's on most of my episodes as well. But yeah, welcome. Thanks for having me, man.
Nice. How did you guys get into conspiracy?
Man, to be honest, it goes back a long time for me. I mean, as a kid, I was into ancient, civilizations. So it started, quick. And then after that, aliens, all the basic pop culture, pop conspiracy stuff. Now I'm kind of deep into the, secret society, symbolism, occult kind of aspect of things.
Perfect, cool.
So yeah, that's where. And also, I guess you could say like the mind control, Internet of Things.
Oh yeah, the whole web of
technocratic
conspiracies,
shit
how it all
coming up.
comes together and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. We are back. We had to fiddle with the screen a little bit. Okay, we're back.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so hell yeah, that's what's up. We are into that same kind of thing. I feel like the topic we're gonna get into today, Madame Blavatsky, Nephilim giants, all that stuff. It's like a missing puzzle piece for me because I kind of been floating all over the spiritual conspiracy kind of roadmap, and I never knew where the Nephilim giants and the Watchers and all that came into play because a lot of people talk about that stuff. How much do you know about that stuff?
I'd like to think that I know a decent amount.
Okay.
I at one point, got kind of deep into are you familiar with Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay, so that kind of started. Well, first it started with Bill Cooper, of course. He was my red pill daddy, as they say.
That's what
And
Isaac
then
Weishaupt says, right?
Yeah. He's right, man. That's the guy
Yeah.
to start with for sure. The
sure.
Mystery Babylon series definitely got me going on that. So I have a skeptical outlook on this theosophical societies.
Okay.
Kind of,
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, just slightly skeptical because I do think there's something to a lot of their work. Of course,
Okay.
There's got to be truth within the deception if there is any.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, me personally, I had a personal spiritual awakening, and that all ties to like ancient Egypt and Atlantis, and that kind of all ties into like the story. And once I started to read into like the Secret Doctrine and Madame Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner and all that kind of stuff, it started to put the puzzle pieces together in for me. So that's why I brought that up. But anyways, how much do you know about theosophy in general?
Yeah, man. I've been reading about it for a while. So I kind of understand that at the core of it, it kind of leads into Luciferian philosophy, or at least it is very vulnerable to that philosophy.
Okay.
But it does have a lot of very cool kind of thought experiments involved with it.
Okay.
That like how they say that we were etheric beings in the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of what Adam's fall is, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly,
so,
exactly.
that's fun to think about, and also like the idea of us being androgynous, male and female in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets into the whole Greek story about how there was a male and female. God was actually mad at them because they were stronger than he was, right? Because they had that balance of female and male principles on lock to the point where even God was jealous. And then he separated them after that.
See,
now that's cool to think about. I wonder about that, but it takes away the idea. It kind of gives them this idea, like it gives way to evolution more than it does creation theory, if you look at it that way.
Can you explain what do you mean by that?
So like evolution, you can't really explain how like male and female just ended up on Earth even through evolution, because you're like, how did it end up getting to the point where human, male, female. Okay. So, I mean, I guess they've done it through animals, but then we still have that kind of thing in the DNA that they can't explain. The space where they are like, where'd that come from? The novel piece of our DNA. That's what leaves way to this whole idea that we were genetically engineered by the Anunnaki, right? And that, white people come from Yaqub, right? That's the whole Black Islam part of it. I love it, man. There's so many different versions.
It's so many layers and perspectives from it. The reason I like it is because I think the whole evolution thing, we're taught to understand that we were just physical beings from the beginning. But this theory kind of gives way to, not only does it support mentalism, that this whole reality is created through our minds, but it also gives way to the fact that we weren't always physical beings. We were conscious and etheric beings at first, and as we evolved into matter, like you said, that's what the Adam's fall was and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of gives way for the syncretism, and that's kind of what theosophy is to me. She's kind of taking all these secret teachings from religions and kind of putting into them in a compendium of knowledge and telling this story that says, hey, well, we weren't always just monkeys and we're on this rock. It's actually that we were actually energy and thought forms, and we fell into matter. So that's what really interests me more about it, because it kind of tells this story of the evolution of spirit and consciousness as opposed to the evolution of us in like physical matter, if that makes sense. And that, I guess, that kind of answers the puzzle piece between us being, apes going into like Homo sapiens or whatever that missing piece is. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. So I do have a question. How would you decide? So whenever you take that into account, what do you think it means whenever, like, what does the part of the story mean whenever they say, eat from the apple, you'll become God, right? In Genesis, So we do take the idea of Nephilims from Genesis. So we got to take some, the Bible has some historical something, right? So I wonder what you think. Who was that? What was that?
Well, we first got to ask ourselves, we're going to talk about Genesis. Do we believe that humanity all came from two sets of people? You know what I mean? Because we have this thing in our genes now where if you have sex with your brother or your cousin, your baby's going to come out not so well in the head. You know what I mean? So we really have to ask ourselves, did humanity really all stem from two people, or is that an allegorical story for our consciousness splitting from a androgynous energy into physical matter that's male and female? Because when you get into the root races, you get into Lemuria and Atlantis, and they're explaining that, I guess that's where the giants parts come in. I have some notes to read on that. But they were saying that between Lemuria and Atlantis, the beings were androgynous, and then they split into male and female. And this whole story also correlates with how we used to procreate. I guess as ethereal beings, we used to like bud or like procreate like amoeba. And then eventually, once we became male and female, that's what happened when we started to have like sex and all that stuff. And I guess that goes into the whole story of like free will and the story of Genesis. So to me, it sounds like Genesis is like the story of mankind and physicality, but it's not the beginning of the story like we're taught to believe. You know what I mean? So that's my idea of it. What do you think about that?
I do think there's some weight to that. I wonder who the adversary is in this situation, because there definitely is one somewhere when you look into this esoteric philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And so I always try to look at it like the tree, you know it's tree by its fruits, right?
Yeah.
And so, for instance, there's a book called, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I've got it up here. It's by Mark Booth. It's called The Secret History of the World. I definitely recommend it. It goes right into this philosophy. And I'll quickly break down what it says. It's just like the Secret Doctrine, but I feel like it's more digestible than the Secret Doctrine. Okay. So Booth claims
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you're good. Booth claims that there's an esoteric tradition, sometimes called the perennial philosophy, right? And that's essentially, what we're talking about. It's been secretly passed down through mystery schools, Egyptian, Elysian, and the Pythagorean cults, right? You got the alchemical brotherhood, secret societies, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati.
It's my shit.
So that's and they have the hidden knowledge, right?
Yes.
And that's why they're the adepts and we're the profane.
Yes.
Led to slaughter by our own, essentially our own will, because we choose not to use our minds for higher conscious thinking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I just get worried sometimes, though, that leads way to this elitism kind of.
It
does.
Like
it does for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wonder about that. Like, how do you walk this line when you're reading about this stuff and working with this, and then also that there's that aspect, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder.
Yeah, well, we talked about this on Tinfoil Hat, and this is why I like the perennial philosophy, because it's some sort of underlying code. And you talked about the adversary, especially like in the Garden of Eden story with you have like the snake and whatnot. And I made a video about this, and I think I talked a little bit about on Tinfoil Hat about it. But the very interesting thing about Kabbalah and Gnosticism is they're both drawing from this story or these teachings that it's pretty much Judaic, you know what I mean? Old Testament, New Testament. But the funny thing about Gnosticism and Kabbalah is the Gnostics are basically rejecting the Old Testament, and they're saying that the snake in the garden was a malevolent being that gave knowledge to mankind. Now, Judaism is the reverse, where they're saying the snake is actually the malevolent being, and they use the secret teachings of the Old Testament. Now, because they have differences, we're going to look at the similarities. The similarity is they all agree that this physical realm is an illusion and we all come from the absolute. Now, basically, their perspectives are different, because think about it in the story of Batman. You just basically have one side saying, no, the Joker's the good guy. The Joker's the good guy. He's actually better. And then you have someone else saying, no, actually, Batman's the good guy. So it's like they're both drawing from the same kind of story, but they're getting different perspectives from it. You know what I mean? So as far as walking the line when going through this knowledge and stuff like that, to me, I kind of just go with whatever the intention and the energy is, or whatever I'm learning and applying or whatever. Like, if I'm ever in a black hood spilling goat's blood and drawing a pentagram on the floor, you know what I mean? Like, slap the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You gone too
100%.
far.
Like you said, there's elites. They know this knowledge. It would be within our benefit if we would figure out to know what they know, why they know it, how they use it to their advantage. That way we can protect ourselves when we need to.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I do agree with that. And then, I do think that a Catholic Church, I think, is there's a book called The Two Babylons. And I believe the Catholic Church is supposed to be like the one against the secret societies and this Luciferian cult, but I think they're really the same thing.
Oh, they are.
And they're just leading people into, it's like the same. But then there's something within Christianity, though, that is legit, Oh,
absolutely.
Whether you want to look at Jesus, and Jesus could be like an ascended master. However you want to look at it. But I mean, a lot of people will get mad at that, and be like, no, he's the one, true. And I understand that thought. I get that, but at the same time, it's like, how do we don't have proof that, Krishna and everybody else wasn't essentially kind of the same person. I mean, we don't know like
the same archetype.
Maybe I don't know my historical timeline well enough to know, but I'm pretty sure they were probably the same.
Yeah, the way I see it is we're within this. I know we're in a simulation, right? So I kind of see it as like, think of like I was watching like fucking, I love bringing up Batman and making this the analogy. I was watching Batman anime, Batman Ninja or something like that, and you really think about it, you have these different versions of Batman. It might be his parents that got killed, it might be Alfred that got killed, it might be have these different stories, but they all essentially, like I said, have the same underlying code, which is embedded within our fabric of our reality. So when someone talks about Krishna and on another continent they're talking about Yeshua, it could definitely be the same energetic being on a higher dimension that just gets manifested to us in a different way on this dimension. You know what I mean?
That nation experience, right?
Yes, exactly.
Everybody experiences their version of the same thing. I get what you're saying. We have this thing on my show that we kind of went through where it was like, all right, so Gnosticism teaches that we're stuck in this prison planet and we have to ascend through getting rid of our passions, right? Our inner passions like lust and greed and all these different things, and kind of become above it. So, and then it teaches that, once you get to the top, everything else. So okay, so if we aren't in a prison planet, okay, and we believe that we are because of this teaching, and then we create something that say like this is what I believe they're doing with this whole like holographic reality, plug ourselves in, technocratic thing. I think that they're tapping into these demiurge entities. And they're getting this through Enochian magic and all this stuff. They're getting this information for the technology, so that way they can put us in a prison planet that we can't leave. Yeah, that we're stuck in. They're perpetuating and they recycle our souls. Yes. And and then they recycle us. Yeah. And then we really are stuck. So through the belief that we are stuck here now, we could be creating something that will get us stuck here. Yeah. Because Peter Thiel says you saw that video I put up. Peter Thiel talking about how he's trying to prevent the Antichrist through creating this technology that literally is going to probably bring the Antichrist. I'm like, this is the inversion that the Antichrist would bring in if it was to be a manifested thing, right? So Yeah, that was our thought.
I was telling him on
recently.
one of our past episodes that Peter Thiel is the anagram for the reptile.
Yeah.
So if you rearrange it,
there's plenty of them.
Yeah,
That pasty
sure.
white skin. Bill Gates, him, Zuckerberg. They have this oddly weird skin. You know.
Yeah.
It's like clammy, pasty, sweaty.
Yeah.
You know, it's odd. It's odd.
Yeah, I want to bring it back to what you said about Gnosticism, and I think it brings it back to a point of perspective, because you said it's like, you know, they're basically saying you got to purify the spirit, and, you know, like you said, I think you were talking about, you know, the lust and cleansing your spirit of lust and all those things, and we talked about it a little bit on Tinfoil Hat, and it's the same thing in Buddhism and Hinduism. Same thing in Kabbalah. You're basically cleansing your spirit in order to exit the realm. But in Gnosticism, they have this perspective that we're stuck here. It's a prison planet. You know what I mean? So all of these different, they're all saying the same thing. They just have different perspectives on what the situation is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
That's why I try, like you said, I love Gnosticism, but I just hate the perspective that they're saying we're stuck here and we're here against our will. You know what I mean? Because when you get into mentalism, it's basically states that we all come from one source consciousness. So to me, when you're in the reincarnation trap, I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty or not. Do you watch that?
I've seen. Oh yeah.
So they have that video game Roy, where you're so immersed in the video game where it's just like a simulation. So to me, reincarnation is like you're at the end of the video game and it's like, boom, you died. You want to restart? And it's like, fuck, I didn't fucking get to finish all the things I wanted to at all. So I got to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as cleansing your chakras. And it's the same thing as getting rid of your karma. And it's the same thing as purifying the spirit in Gnosticism or getting rid of the archons. And so that's why the perennial philosophy resonates with me, because it's kind of like this underlying code to every religion, but everybody has their different perspectives on it, and that's where you get the different nominations of like Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I could see that. And also, you know, I guess they say that like the whole point, we come here to try to remember that we chose to come here, right? And so that's the point, is to remember. And you know, Alan Watts did a great job at breaking down a lot of that kind of thought process. Now, I do wonder though, within the Bible, it does talk about, if you're to take any of it seriously, it does talk about kind of not like counting the star. So all right, so I try to boil this down to the bare bones of it, is what I'm trying to say. So I always try to look at, okay, what does this warn? What does this kind of give? I'm sure there's truth within the Hermetic philosophy, 100%.
Yeah.
I do think that there's also deception to get you to believe that you are God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't believe that that is real. I believe that there is a piece of you, right? That's eternal, that you can connect with. But I don't believe that it makes you God, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that on the flip side of that, though, magic in a sense is real, because you can manipulate nature, right? And manipulate nature to the point of, you know, working in your will. I don't believe there's any way to really do it where it's in God's will. I think the only way you can really do magic is in your will, because you're choosing to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's
most
like,
magic is against God's. Most magic is free will, basically. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just look at it like, you know, I try to boil it down to, okay, freeing yourself of attachments and connecting with yourself, and freeing yourself of the identity ego that you have. I can see that being part of it. I can see a lot of different, so I try to boil it down, you know what I mean? Because I do understand that there is a Luciferian like principle that underlies every religion. I think it's infiltrated everything. And so our job is to use our discernment given to us by our divine self, and find it within everything. And that's how we do this, is by these conversations, right?
Exactly.
Because I did see a lot of like little bit of hate, like on Tinfoil. They're like, you guys got to get a priest on here if you're gonna have all these new age guys. It's like, how about just have the conversation? Just have the conversation and get it out there where you're like, okay, we understand that all these different people believe this, so maybe we got to walk with this with caution, but there might be truth within what they believe. So then there's that too. So it's just always that you can't make the Faustian bargain, though. And that's what you got to watch.
Yeah,
you know?
you don't have to believe it, but understand that they believe it and they're practicing it.
Yeah.
That's what we say. That's what we say on my show. Because I'm like, we talk about crazy deep shit. You guys gotta understand. I don't do this every day, but they do.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it's beholden to me to know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Bible does warn against divination and all that stuff. And I think the whole, you know, man realizing he's God idea, principle, and hermeticism and all that stuff, that's basically a very distorted and how do I say it, extreme idea of basically saying man was made in God's image. You know what I'm saying? Because the perennial philosophy is saying we all emanate from a different consciousness, and like you said, our individuality is our ego. So basically, same thing that happens on meditation is the same thing that happens with psychedelics. When you have an ego death, you realize that you're everything, and that's the same thing as saying like God is everything. God is, God is the trees, God is the rocks, God is this whole earth, God is my energy, God is you, God. You have that realization of all is one. You know what
Connection,
I mean?
just oneness.
So that's what I believe the whole man becoming God thing is. I don't think it's a guy trying to fucking be the master of
Control
the universe.
the world. Yeah,
you know what I mean? But
control the universe.
It's more about self-realization to me. You know what I mean? But
100%.
But I do believe that there is, like you said, a Luciferian aspect to it. There's a satanic aspect to it, because to me, Satanism is service to self through free will. So especially if you're doing magic and stuff like that, it's messing up the code of reality. And that's why I believe that like all these people that practice these dark arts and this dark magic, they have karma to answer to. You know what I mean? So it's like we can learn the knowledge, but as long as we're not practicing it in a Luciferian or satanic way, then it's like, I believe that I don't think I'm doing anything wrong.
It's like the tarot and all that stuff, you know, that falls into that category. It's still looked at as black magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I watch that because like kind of like astrology, where it's like you're giving the demiurge more power the more you believe that they have power over you, because the stars, the energy. Because if you do believe that those deities manifest as physical planets here, so this is kind of their concept, right? So these powerful deities in this quantum realm, if you want to look at it from a scientific standpoint. They manifest here. All powerful spiritual deities manifest in the physical reality. And so they believe, these groups, that the planets are that, and that their energies on us, depending on the time you're born and all that different stuff, is your predetermined karmic debt for your lifetime, right? And I'm sure there's some weight to that, but the more that you, I guess, live every day thinking, let me check it, let me make sure my, that you're giving your power to them, because it does say, if you do believe this in the Bible, that because and this is the part that fucks me up. So it says all the angels had to stand with God in the halls of whatever, right? The children of God got to sit at the table with him, right? So that shows that like we are above them. Even the good, bad angels, however you want to look at it, we're above them all. Because we are his literal children. They're like his servants.
Wow.
And so that shows me that like our power is so beyond that we don't need to contact these things at all, because they just want to trick us and fuck with us, because we are the chosen ones in God, because we're God's children. And so they want to lead us astray in all these different ways. I do believe that.
Okay. I'll give you a different perspective on it. I'm reading Autobiography of a Yogi right now. And this is about Paramahamsa Yogananda, who basically brought yoga to the United States. And he had a conversation with his guru one time, and his guru was like, how come you don't get an astrological amulet? And he's like, dude, like, he's basically saying, like, if we're supposed to realize that we can control this reality ourselves, then why would I look into astrology? And he's like you said, astrology is basically, you're born into a certain time or certain era, and your astrological signs and characteristics are the strengths and characteristics that are deterministic of your past life karma. So basically what he ends up saying is, yes, let's say you're a Sagittarius, you're strong at this, you're weak at that, but you're not supposed to let that be the be-all, end-all. You have these strengths and weaknesses because it's the karma and lessons that were given to you in this lifetime for your spirit to learn from. So if you're a certain sign and you have strengths in this and you have weaknesses in that, that means you have to do the emotional and spiritual work where you have to work on your weaknesses, and then you have to use your strengths in order to help you with that. You know what I mean?
Of getting stuck.
It's not
I was just gonna say, instead of getting stuck like, oh, that's how I am, I can only do this, or I'm bad at that.
You're supposed to rise above
I'm
it.
a Sagittarius.
Yeah, exactly.
What can I do about it?
Exactly.
You know, that's
and you're born with those flaws, not because of these deities, but because of your own choice. If anything, if we're gonna believe in this, then it's got to be that you chose, not because you just happen to fall under these deities' powers. It's like, dude, this is the part where I think that I do think that we're starting to kind of see the difference. Because I spent a long time really not seeing where to go with this line of thought because I was like, well, okay, so either I believe in the Bible 100%, which I know has been fucked with by man a little bit. But it has historical like weight to it though at the same time. Or I believe in like all these other teachings, which essentially are the same. But then you got to remember, like Nimrod, the worship of, like, you know, the first man who like went against God, built the Tower of Babel. His religion, which was the worship of idols, spread across everywhere. That's where you get the pantheons, and I understand that that's why they probably are all similar. So when I look at that, I'm like, well, yeah, sure, that's why they're similar. But you don't want to fucking the worship of Nimrod is like Catholicism and Kabbalistic Judaism. So like, but I'm sure there's some light within it. Right?
Yeah.
But then you think about this, right? But you see little parables like this, right? Watch this shit. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not by yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. And it also says, you shall have no other gods before me, right? And so this is the first nation to do that. And as after Nimrod was destroyed, we would imagine it would be like the Noah's flood situation, right? It spread everywhere, and that's where you get into Egypt and Greece and then Aztec, Mayan. That's why it's everywhere, I believe. And so I love deciphering this shit because you get this historical text that really does lay foundation to a lot of the other answers you're looking for.
The cool thing about that book I was just talking about is he'll take quotes from the Bible, and he'll put it in like his notes, and he'll relate it to like, you know, the teachings that he got through his lifetime through Hinduism and stuff like that. And he'll say, you know, this is just like, you know, this verse in the Bible and whatnot. But I believe monotheism versus polytheism comes into, it's the same thing as mentalism. We had this guy on who took mushrooms, and he communicated with the Egyptian deity Thoth. And he, if you know anything about that, you know, that's into the whole hermeticism and secret knowledge and stuff like that.
There you go.
There it is. Hell yeah, there it is. So basically,
Corpus Hermeticus, baby.
He explained that he realized that the whole different pantheon, the god of love, the god of war, the god of this, these are all within ourselves, and they all come together and give us these different characteristics that all come down and trickle down into our ego. It's kind of like Aldous Huxley and the Doors of Perception, where he says everything, like they said, emanating from source consciousness, but our brain, you know, has these doors of perception that puts us into this ego. Now, when it comes to pantheism versus monotheism, or polytheism versus monotheism, I believe that the worship of idols is the distortion and the extremism of one part of your soul or consciousness versus the other, as opposed to having it all balanced. So what I mean by that is, you know, let's say you have your goddess of love or god of war and all these different aspects of yourself. If they're imbalanced, you're gonna have an imbalanced life and reality around you that's not gonna be in harmony with God. Now, if you have all of them in harmony and you just harmonize with the one true essence that's not broken down to all these different compartments that make you, but you're actually striving to be that perfection of man created in God's image, I believe that's what monotheism is about, and I believe that's where Jesus comes in with, you know, you can only find God through me, and that comes into, like I said, monotheism versus polytheism. Where
he
like,
says that, but what does he do though? It's by his works. He's empathetic. He's compassionate.
Yes, exactly.
He brings love.
Exactly.
His disciples were the lowest of the low.
Yes.
He brought the people that were terrible in life, because struggle brings you growth in life. You will never through a stagnant life find yourself spiritually awakened. It's always through the lowest of the lows that you'll usually find yourselves being spiritually awakened. And I think it is what you're saying is for any listeners that think that sounds complicated, it's very simple, because it's exactly what we just said. After that, it's just what he taught is about the empathy. It's just live your life in a way of accordance with what you know is good, because you are born with this discernment of what good and evil really is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
for better or for worse.
Balance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And also remember this, because within these secret societies, there's a lot of like you know, you've seen the book Secret Teachings, so you've seen how it can get really like whenever you go to the Kabbalistic area. I haven't gotten too deep into it because I think it's too complicated. And if it's complicated, truth should never be complicated. Truth is always simple, right? And truth has no like, they teach this idea of duality within Hermetic principle, right? And the checkerboard floors. Well, I just wonder, because whenever I read shit, like I had these notes that I wrote down because I wanted to mention these, because I'm like, how do you ignore this, right? Because if you take some of the Bible verses and you got to look at other ones, it's like, how do you ignore this? God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm not even religious, dude, but I just read all things. Like, I got the fucking Bhagavad Gita, I got the Quran, I got the fucking Bible.
Nice.
I read it all, dude. And it's just a matter of like, all of it says the same thing, which is get rid of your prime. Just like the Sphinx. What is the Sphinx? It's an animal with a man's head, because our mind, our consciousness makes us have the ability to rise above our primal animal nature. Shit. That's all this is. It's simple.
Yeah.
And that's all it is, dude. That's really it. It's simple, though. It's very simple. Truth is simple, you know?
Yes.
That's
agreed.
I like that.
People run away from that. People run away from this stuff because they think it's like a lot. It sounds too complicated. I feel like it's like, your inner self is like, you only find it through silence. So that's the most simple thing, right? So it's things that are just as simple as it gets. Like go out in nature and relax and just listen to an ocean. Like that's how you just find your core self. It's so simple.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, it's funny because we're walking with caution when we talk about this stuff, but when we get into theosophy, especially Gnosticism too, the emphasis is realizing your own connection with spirit through your own experiences, which is what you just 100%. Said. You know what I mean? So I think we do got to be careful.
You know, Helena Blavatsky. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, you know, there's something to Helena Blavatsky where I'm not 100% decided on her. She said she did not like the Freemasons because I think the Illuminati aspects of the Freemasons, because of, you know, the Weishaupt, you know, Alec Weishaupt, that, you know, and you know, he infiltrated him after he ran away. And so I just think that that's why she hated him. But she did say this. She focused in the beginning on the cosmogenesis. Remember this? She focuses on the origins of the universe and the metaphysical principles. It draws from Hinduism, but she said that how it is this, what did she call it? She called it a omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and unmutable principle on which all speculation is possible, since it transcends the power of human conception. In other words, it is the omnipresent thing that permeates everything, the principle of everything. Yeah. Call it vibration, whatever you want to call it. Source, life, you know, that's God. And I think that that's above everything, right?
Yeah.
There's no like, she didn't give it a natural aspect, right? So the nature aspects of these little g gods is where I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm not going to like worship it, because I understand that omnipresent principle is within everything, including
above
myself.
All. It's above all. Yeah. So let's I got some notes. Let's go over, since that was a subject for today. I'll go over some notes for her, so the readers, the listeners or the watchers can get an understanding of who she was. So Helena Blavatsky was a Russian mystic, traveler, and co-founder of the Theosophical Society, often called the grandmother of modern occultism. She claimed to have studied with hidden adepts or masters in Tibet and India, bringing back teachings she said came from ancient wisdom traditions that predated all religions. Her two major books, Isis Unveiled in 1877 and The Secret Doctrine in 1888, mix science, myth, and mysticism, describing humanity's spiritual evolution through 7 root races and the hidden history of lost continents like Atlantis and Lemuria, and a universe woven together by consciousness and cosmic law, karma. She was influenced by Eastern texts, Western esoteric texts, and occultists and philosophers like blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. You know what I mean?
And for everybody who maybe is used to hearing root races and you just think of Hitler, you should understand that this is not about that. This is actually
let's talk about that.
It's a breakdown of our please go ahead.
Well, it's funny how the Nazis come up all the time. You know what I mean? And they had this fascination with occultism. And a lot of people read her book, The Secret Doctrine, including a bunch of presidents. Elvis read it. I think Thomas Edison. And I'm pretty sure Hitler read it. And what she calls the 5th root race, she's going through cycles of human evolution. So these root races are basically the names of races of all of humanity. So when she gets to the 5th one, which is the one that we're in now, it's called the Aryan race. So basically the Hitler and the Nazis took this idea and they radicalized it and said like, no, only these people are the Aryan race. We got to get rid of everyone else. So they're basically like taking her teachings and her books and they're distorting it and skewing it in a way that supports white supremacy on their behalf. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that's where the discussion with Nazism and Hitler comes in when we talk about this stuff, and you know, that's how he took, you know, symbols like the swastika and he perverted them.
Helena Blavatsky actually used on her thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you look at her book,
and
or the logo, I think it has the swastika on it. I think.
It does, but that's because the Atlanteans, the Aryans, were an Asian race.
Yep.
Yes.
And that comes from because the Babylon.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Babylonia and Nimrod, this would be whenever they finally were this highly advanced. See, because I believe that they're trying to recreate Atlantis, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, this Atlantis 2.0. Yep. One world government, one world. Yep. One world government, one world religion. And I believe that the last time this was the case was what we talked about with Nimrod. I believe that that was the Atlantean culture before, the one world government, religion, all that stuff before, that then spread out throughout these. And I believe that, you know, that's why she says it was a morally degenerate race, because eventually it did become that way. And the worship of like Baal is Nimrod. And so whenever you see that, you understand that, oh, there's still people worshiping the Atlantean race and they're trying to bring that back.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting take. I do believe that the Atlantean race sank because there was a corruption. Within that story, she says...
But did it sink in literal waters or so, you know, consciousness is represented by water in the esoteric traditions, right?
Yeah.
So did people turn on them because they understood that it was a morally corrupt society, right?
So the way I understand it, and we're going to get to this in a second, is when she goes through the root races, she's explaining how, like I said, humanity came from the absolute one omnipresent consciousness and then slowly became ethereal and physical, and then finally we're into this state that we became now. So I do believe that Atlantis, Lemuria, and all that are on higher dimensions. Now, with that being said, if they're on higher dimensions, they're not in this third dimension where time is linear, where you have the end and you have the beginning. So I believe personally that these higher dimensions still exist. Like Atlantis, Lemuria, they're still going on, but we're just broken down and our awareness is into this state, this collapsed 3D reality where we're seeing the end of the beginning and time just goes like that. But I believe on the higher states like Atlantis, Lemuria and stuff like that, like that's all just still going on, but because they don't have 3D time, they have like, they can like go back in time and experience like different timelines. That's the way I see it. That's the way I think time works in higher dimensions, and that's why I think they say Atlantis didn't sink physically, it sank in more of in a spiritual sense, and our consciousness collapsed into a dense and more lower awareness, and that's where we are on the 3D plane. And I think that's why we get stuck in this reincarnation cycle, because every time we die we're like, nah, I want to do it again, you know what I mean? And I think removing your karma has to do with removing your earthly attachments, and that's why I believe monks give up sex, they give up money, they give up this whole lifestyle just to be sitting in silence in a monastery somewhere. And I think that's why when they die, that's probably when they experience what they refer to as nirvana, because they don't come back into a reincarnation, you know what I mean? They probably are able to go back to that absolute or something. I don't know, that's just me ranting, you know what I mean?
No, definitely. No, I could see that. Definitely with the cycles of time, how they seem to be cyclical. You know, I could see that it's happening at once, but also it happened in the past, right? So like whenever you look around at all the whenever you see all the pyramids all over, that's kind of that indication that Atlantis like was a real worldwide culture. Yeah. That maybe doesn't exist physically now here, but still does, like, because it's all at one. Yes. So I understand what you mean by that to an extent. Yes. I get what you're saying, but I do think that that because of that, we can see what's about to happen. Yes. And how it'll end. Yeah. Right? Because of the moral bankruptcy that they had before, if you're recreating the same thing. So we because I don't think that who's creating this future society has the same concept that you and I do about finding our true selves. I think they want to do it electronically. Exactly. Yeah, they want to do it like digitally and like digital dark enlightenment, right? It's
So I think that's where we got to talk about the recreation of Atlantis, because maybe the people who were trying to do it before, like Nimrod and stuff like that, they were trying to do it in a different aspect, as opposed to, because when you talk about the perennial philosophy and stuff like that, she says that we emanated from this one source consciousness and we're supposed to emanate back into it. And the way to emanate back into that is to, like I said, in my opinion, align free will with God's will. Because when you talk about the root races, they go from they get less and less and less spiritual and more involved into egoism and individuality. So in order to get back to, I guess, Atlantis, or get back on the way back up to what they would call source consciousness or God, we would have to strip ourselves away of any ego and materialism. So the recreation of Atlantis being an evil thing or a selfish or a satanic thing would kind of go against the perennial philosophy, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
It would. But I believe the emergence of what our emergence of a higher consciousness comes with the struggle of the same equivalent, okay, so Saturn represents material reality, right?
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be the highest of the Kabbalistic tree, which represents your consciousness leaving, or your soul leaving this material realm, and it stops you almost every time, right? That's the whole thing about like reincarnating. Okay, so assuming that so as we grow in our consciousness, right, that is still going to cling, and you see what I'm saying? Like there's still that. So we're gonna, like, I do think everything ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And so before we had this like kind of etheric mentality, I do think we're gonna head back to that. But first we got to go through this ultra dense reality.
Yes.
Or maybe we're in that now, and now we're merging into this like half dense, half digital means.
Yeah.
Then eventually it kind of finally ebbs back to what we're talking about. But I wonder if we see that in our lifetime.
Yeah,
that's what I wonder.
That's an interesting thing, because it does seem like time is going faster, right? Like, just in the past 5 years, like, who would have ever thought people were talking like this everywhere, openly?
Right. 100%.
Yeah, and a lot of the new age stuff, I do think a lot of the new age stuff is more positive. I do think there is some some stuff in there that's kind of distorted or whatever, but they all say that we're at this turning point in human history where we're supposed to go from it kind of looks like it's going like this, like a upside down, like you know what I mean? Like we're go from God down into this denser 3D material plane, and it's almost like they're saying that we're at this precipice where we're gonna go back up, and that gets into the Hindu yuga cycles and stuff like that, because they say there's a certain amount of years that, you know, we spiritually go through this, we go through the dark, and then we go through the light. So that's what Helena Blavatsky gets into too. She kind of syncretizes all that Hindu stuff within all the other stuff that she learns and puts into the giants and the watchers and the Nephilim and all the root races and stuff like that. So that's why I feel like Helena Blavatsky and the Secret Doctrine was kind of a missing piece for me. You know what I mean? And I do think we got to walk a line and try to figure out really what's good and what's bad. And it's interesting you bring up the Saturn thing, because if you think about the movie Interstellar, it's all about that shit, dude.
Yeah.
He goes through a black hole right past Saturn, and then he goes into a tesseract, which is basically a Merkaba, if you know about that, which is a hypercube. And he's there in his consciousness above space and time, communicating with his past self. And the coolest thing about Interstellar is that he would never have went on the space mission unless he got the coordinates to NASA. And he only got the coordinates to NASA because he got to space. So it's like a retro causality where the cause and the effect are the cause and the effect of each other. You know what I mean? It's not linear. The cause is the effect, and the effect is the cause. That's why I love fucking Interstellar. It's so interesting.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, that's fucking crazy, actually. I didn't know that. Yeah, dude, you know, you mentioned it, Rudolf Steiner, earlier, and you know, he talked about how there was this, it starts with an A, Abramon or Aramon, which was this dark, ultra like material entity that was coming into like it was starting to manifest here, right? And then a little bit after that, you had like the Babylon workings.
Yep.
And then a little bit after that, you had obviously endless war that we've been going through.
Yeah.
All this weird shit going on at the same time. I believe the UFO stuff is a conscious thing, so most likely the veil is
Yeah.
I think the veil
I
is
don't
being
believe
thin.
they come from outer space.
No. I think the veil is being thin. Like I said earlier, the veil is being thin for us at the same time that this ultra evil spirit is being manifested here at the same time. So I think that it's both things at once. And then whenever you look at like 9/11, whenever that happened, right? There's that. Remember in that black smoke, there's that face.
Yeah, like a devilish face.
Dude, that guy Rudolf Steiner made a fucking statue, It was the same face,
Really?
bro.
What?
Dude, I swear to God,
That's
dude.
crazy.
Dude, the same face. I'm
Yeah, I
like,
remember
that's
that picture.
Aramon. That's Aramon, bro.
That's
And so,
insane, bro.
I didn't figure that out. I saw the picture, like, 2016 or so back. But then I saw his statue recently whenever I was reading about him, and I was like, oh
You're like,
my
wait
God,
a
I know I've
minute.
seen that.
Yeah.
Where have I seen that? And
Wow.
I found it. I was like, oh no. And that's so indicative of what's going on at once, dude. I really believe that. And we got the 9/11 president right now, Trump, MAGA, which is the 5th degree of Satanism,
Yeah.
right? For the Christian base to follow him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a good inverted.
Yeah.
It's like an inversion that only would happen if this really was manifesting right now. And it's too much of a coincidence, all these things, to just ignore, man.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, we're in the end, like, if you would call it end times or the Armageddon or apocalypse.
That's what I say.
The awakening.
Yeah.
The revelation, the revealing. The revealing is the revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk about real quick the root races, so we can kind of get an idea of like what the secret philosophy is, and the listeners can get an idea of like what we're talking about when we talk about this secret doctrine and the root races and all that. So basically, they go from the absolute, and they kind of descend more and have more free will, and they kind of split from androgynous beings to male and female in the way they procreate. So the first root race was Polarian. They were entirely ethereal and luminous, composed of subtle astral substance. They were more like energy forms. They had a complete spiritual connection with the divine source, no ego or individuality. So they even were like telepathic and stuff like that. And I believe that's where the story of Babel comes in later in the Atlantean part, because that's obviously more in the evolution of the root races. The second root race, Hyperborean, semi-astral but still slightly denser and more visible. They inhabited an ideal parasitical region, sometimes equated to the polar regions before Earth tilted. They had a strong connection to source, but beginning to sense individuality, which created the first spark of self-awareness. They were largely androgynous and reproduced by sweat-borne emanations, seeds or drops from their body that grew into beings. The free will was minimal, but it was emerging. The beings began to experience faint desires and curiosity, still mostly guided by the spiritual law. So, I mean, that curiosity kind of plays into the Adam and Eve story, where she bites the apple or whatever. So I think that's where that story fits into where Atlantis and the fall of all that comes in, like you said earlier. But the third root race, we have Lemurian, the first truly physical beings, immense in stature, often depicted as 12 to 18 feet tall. So that's where the Nephilim come in, I think. And they're more primal. Some sources describe them as having semi-reptilian traits. This is the turning point where humans become self-aware, separating from the instinctual divine harmony. The ego and mind awaken, which enables growth but also creates duality. It's the transition from being androgynous to male and female sexes. Early Lemurians still produce via egg-like forms, eventually evolving into sexual reproduction. True free will appears here. Humanity can now choose its path towards spirit or matter, which introduces karma, moral choice, and the potential for spiritual fall. So from there, the fourth root race is Atlantean, fully physical with massive vitality, psychic powers, and advanced civilizations. Atlanteans were often described as giants compared to us. Their spiritual connection was severely weakened. Atlanteans were dominated by ego, desire, and the misuse of psychic and technological power. They retained spiritual abilities like telepathy, energy manipulation, but they used them selfishly. They were male and female, and they used standard sexual reproduction. Their free will was fully developed but often corrupted. This misuse leads to karmic catastrophe, floods, and destruction, and that ends most of their civilization. Then we come to the fifth root race, which they call Aryan, which is supposed to be who we are now. Physical as we know it, with the mind fully active and reason becoming the dominant tool. That gets into mentalism and all that stuff. The spirit connection is divided. Our era is about reconciling the ego-driven materialism of the Atlantean inheritance with return to higher consciousness. Some humans awaken spiritually and others sink deeper into matter. The gender and procreation, obviously male and female, sexual reproduction, and the free will is central challenge of this race. Humanity must consciously choose to align with spiritual truth rather than remain bound by ego and illusion. And that gets into aligning your free will with God's will, what we talked about on Tinfoil Hat and all that stuff. They talk about the sixth root race, but that's like supposed to be the future. So that's supposed to be like when we start to harmonize and become like spirit beings again, and then we're probably going to become less dense. So what I take from that is we're at this turning point where they say, you know, humanity's going to awaken. So what I think is, I think it's going to become more like dreamlike, and we're going to have more manifestation abilities. And it might even become like, we might be confused, like, oh shit, didn't that happen yesterday? Or like our timelines might be able to, like, we might be able to just move forward and backward in time, but it's probably going to be a very subtle change for us. I think it's a matter of consciousness and our awareness and our abilities of it. I think we descended all the way down and we're going to go back up. That's what I take from it. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see what you take from it.
You know, I think, it's very intriguing. You know, it could definitely be this. I have the same kind of breakdown of, I kind of want to quickly, because I feel like this is kind of crazy, because it lays out a story. Like,
no, go for it. Said. Yeah, I went on a whole 5-minute rant, so go ahead and say whatever comes to mind. No, dude. Yeah.
So the first human beings, it says, was not like us. They were in a dreamlike state, walking around, right? They were all one in this soul, etheric realm, right? This water. It almost seems like dream state. And then it talks about this self-awareness, right? So then that's when we start to individualize ourselves. Yeah. And then as that develops, we were able to still contact the gods, right? Mm-hmm. In this part. And then finally it started to transition to that third Lemurian, Atlantean, where we became more physical, and that's when we started building structures that were perfect mathematically, that align with the celestial bodies, because we long to be back with where we came from, right? Yeah. This realm that we descended from, that we no longer have contact with.
Let me stop you right there real quick.
Please,
when
go
you
ahead.
talk about the structures, I believe that's where the megalithic structures come from, because if they were in this half etherical, half materialistic state where they had energy manipulation, it makes sense to where they were able to build these big ass structures with laser precision and stuff like that.
Bring
to where
stones thousands
they
of
don't
miles.
understand how they built them
and
today.
They still had that high conscious awareness of perfection,
which is
because they were still very close in contact with the lost knowledge of the gods, right? Or their whole, they're perfect. Because the thing is, within all these secret societies, you know, they talk about, you know, the architect of the universe is who they worship, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why geometry and Pythagoras and all this stuff plays a big role. And that's why all these are mathematically perfect and celestially perfect, because the sciences. And of course, that's what kind of worries me, because I'm like, all right, well, how much of that kind of digs into the, you know, I always walk a fine line.
Yeah.
But,
you have to.
I definitely, you do.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I stopped you. Go ahead and continue.
No, you're fine. So I believe the age of the heroes after this comes, and the consciousness shift of humanity becoming more waking and rational, right? And then this is when you get the mystery schools that preserve the old spiritual knowledge of the fall, right? And the old understandings of where we came from. And then, of course, as time goes on, and, you know, it gets diluted. The Alexandria library gets burned. You know, the Black Plague happens, where they reset all of history right after they burn the Library of Alexandria, and then pretty much indoctrinate people into this totalitarian idea of what religion should be. And then now we're trying to regress. We're trying to regress to get back to this lost world that only certain people pertain the knowledge to now. And it's just fucked. It's so fucked, man. Yeah.
Fuck,
so
bro.
and then of course it does mention that you know, in the future stage, the return of the mystic, and I believe that we all have a little bit of that in us that are into this. Agreed. That are trying to. I believe we're the first seeding of the race of that future one. If this is real, I totally believe this. If this is real, then that's exactly what's going on right now.
Fuck yeah, you're fucking killing it on our show, bro, and we're killing it on your show. This is a fucking Swapcast of the century, dog. The fuck, 6GAgenda and Outside Minds podcast.
Yes, sir. We get the same vibe on ours, dude. It's a perfect little mixed vibe too, because like we got the same you know, way that we disseminated information and everything. So it's great. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love this topic because it fits into where the Nazis come in, and the distortion of the Aryan race, and the idea of that, and it puts into the perspective of not only the Nephilim giants and the Watchers and all that stuff, but like we talked about, the pyramids and how they may have been built on higher dimensions that collapsed into this timeline. That gives way to what they were trying to say on ancient aliens, but it's like now we're understanding that aliens aren't physical beings that come from different planets. They're higher consciousness beings that probably built these structures on a higher dimension, and we're just looking at the remnants balance of it, and that's why they're astrologically aligned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Damn.
Or I always look at the Anunnaki and the aliens. As like a rebranding of this these like little G gods. That apparently and I'm like, that's probably what it is. Yeah, definitely, and definitely had some kind of staging in our development of some point, of some sort. Definitely, that's not even debatable. I mean, every book talks about they were here and fucked with us for a while. So we definitely got some shit, you know what I mean? So that's legit. And I think that the whole like bloodlines, like, eugenics and all that shit is that way they can preserve that bloodline of the Nephilim.
Yep.
And dude, we're getting to the point now, man, with the DNA and genetic, cloning and shit, dude, they could bring the Nephilim back, bro.
Yeah. They brought back whatever it was from like
the woolly mammoth
ago.
or something.
They brought back
that's what I'm
woolly
talking
mammoth
about.
DNA, and they mixed it with like elephant DNA now, and they like made like a clone of like
there was something else though
like
that's funded by
older,
Q.
like...
That's funded by Inc.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's older?
No,
it's funny that we get on the topic of DNA and all that stuff, because I was talking with my cousins yesterday, and one of them used to be in the Church of Latter-day Saints, so we're talking about Mormonism and all that stuff. And we talked about on our last episode how Joseph Smith was a Freemason, and they
see how it all comes from
Mormonism. They bought all the fucking information for like 23andMe and all those fucking send your blood in and figure out your ancestry and all that stuff. They have it like all in a vault somewhere. Dude.
Have you seen King of Clones?
Because the Holy Grail is not a chalice. The Holy Grail is not a chalice. It's the bloodline. If you've seen the Da Vinci Code, it tells you that. Dude. They've actually, it's mainstream now, dude. It's the bloodline, and that's what I'm saying, man. Like they're preserving it.
Have you seen King of Clones on Netflix?
I haven't. Man, is it good?
That's great. That convinced me that they're cloning everything, because
really,
I forget where. I don't know if he's Korean or something, but yeah, he's cloning all these dogs.
Yes, sir.
He's cloning these dogs and chickens, and like they made it illegal, but he was using human embryos.
Really?
Yeah, it was
dude,
crazy.
That's I'll have to check that out. That's crazy, dude. They put it right in front of your face, so you're normal. Dude, Dan Brown, Angels and Demons. Dude, I read this, so I was kind of a nerdy kid, and I read like,
that shit in 7th grade. I read that shit in 7th grade,
you talking about when did I get into this type of shit? Like, dude, I'm reading Angels and Demons in fucking 7th grade too. And so, of course, when you look at the Illuminados and shit, like up, all that shit upside down or whatever, it's like, come on, dude, like that seeded my mind to be. And I feel like maybe it was done on purpose because they wanted people to wake up and start getting into this. And that's why I always proceed with caution. I always proceed with caution.
Yeah, I mean that gets into the GATE program. Were you in the GATE program at all as a kid?
Not that I remember. I honestly, my childhood was a little bit slightly traumatic and a little bit choppy, so I don't remember. Okay. Like a lot of shit I don't remember. I've thought about doing like regressive shit, and I'm like, man, that could be like opening myself up for some weird shit. Like I'm good on that, People say that, you do, because I believe that a lot of the psychotherapy stuff comes from the mystery schools where they try to tap into your mind. And so I'm real cautious with like, because, Sigmund Freud, he's the guy who, like, one of the creators of psychology. Yes. His nephew created a book. Yes. He literally wrote the book on propaganda.
Ramsey.
And then his grandson owns Netflix. So I'm like, dude, you just gotta watch this. Man. You gotta be careful, bro.
Tool. Number one.
Yes,
bro.
Exactly.
That exactly reminds me of Scientology and that whole auditing thing they have. If you look into that, they're like basically trying to reprogram your psychology by having you go through your traumas and stuff like that. And I don't know, that could be a good thing for some people, and it could be a very bad thing for some people, which is why Scientology can be so popular, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Even like AA, like take all your inventories and tell this other person about it, you know? And I think that even had some Crowley and Aleister Crowley relations.
I'm sure it did.
I don't know how confirmed it is, but
Well, we do know that the guy that created AA was into like LSD and stuff like that. So he was more into like opening up your mind, and you were supposed to do like a psychedelic on the last step.
You're supposed to do
like
LSD or something after you've done your steps in AA.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's a whole rabbit hole in itself.
That sounds like the CIA to me.
Really though.
Yeah. Dude, you know about Laurel Canyon,
right? Of course.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on that with the dude that he gave us the whole history on LSD and the CIA while he was tripping, dude.
Yeah, and he was on LSD on the podcast.
5 to 10 minutes in, I'm like, this dude's on acid. telling us about acid.
He was talking in circles.
He was just talking.
You told me that
slow.
3 times.
Yeah. He was talking really slow.
Yeah. He was able to coherently take us through the whole history of it. It was amazing.
I was impressed.
Wow.
I was impressed. But you can see his thoughts were going. So he had to select
That's
from
how
all
it
these
is.
thoughts. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. So nuts. Well, what's your take on psychedelic like mushrooms and stuff? Do you think that's like the DMT realm? Do you think that all accesses this dreamlike state that we left and fell from?
I've done it all. That's why we're on this show. You know, I've experienced all that. Like I do psychedelics.
You're actually in that realm right now. You just don't know. You're in a fixed state of perception. That's what the doors of perception is. You're in this state, and that's what when you do psychedelics, it opens everything up, and you're seeing fucking simultaneous,
you're
fucking
seeing stuff
different
that's
dimensions.
Here always. You just can't access that on your regular mind state.
Yeah, he told me that when I was coming down off DMT, and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm realizing right now. Fuck, it was crazy.
Yeah,
man.
Feels like that shit's crazy.
Yeah. 6GAgenda podcast, bro. Fucking thank you so much for coming on. We got to get your partner on. We got to figure out a good way to get all 4 of us on together and have another conversation.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Outside Minds podcast, Helena Blavatsky, the Nephilim, the Watchers, Atlantis, Lemuria, the Nazis, all that shit, bro. We fucking took that shit down, boy. Thank you, bro. Do a little outro for you guys too as well. Whatever you want to tell your listeners and watchers, bro.
For sure. Hey, hope you guys enjoyed that. This is another episode of 6GAgenda. You know what to do. We got our description. You can hit us up on our Gmail, whatever you want. Definitely follow Outside Minds as well as us if you haven't already. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. That's it. Outside Minds podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys check out 6GAgenda podcast. If you guys are coming over from our channel from 6GAgenda, welcome. We love to see new faces. Hit us up. We'll hit you guys back. Thank you guys for coming on. 6GAgenda podcast, Outside Minds podcast. We out, motherfuckers.
Yo.
Hell yeah, bro.